If you are a business owner, you may be able to open a branch or subsidiary of your company in Canada, and in doing so, transfer yourself or your employees to Canada through an intra-company transfer work permit. If the person being transferred is an executive or a senior manager, they may be able to claim 200 express entry points after working in Canada for a year, and specialists can claim up to 50 points. Depending on whether or not you'll be self-employed in Canada, you can claim even more points, and we'll look at that in a couple of minutes in this video. So you can not only set up your business in Canada, but can also be on your way to obtain Canadian PR and citizenship. In this video, we're going to look at how this can be helpful for you regardless of your age, whether you're 27 or 72. My name is Rashid Ali. I'm a licensed Canadian immigration consultant, or an RCIC, from Milton, Canada. I share information about Canadian visas, immigration, and citizenship through this channel. This is generic information and should not be considered legal advice, as the circumstances of each applicant are different. For legal advice, please feel free to schedule a consultation with me. I'll leave a link in the description. Intra-company transfer is not something unique to Canada. In USA, for example, this is known as the L1 visa. In UK, it is now called the Senior or Specialist Worker Visa. In Australia, it is known as the intra-corporate transfer, so on and so forth. So intra-company transfer is based on international trade agreements between Canada and other countries, and is a tried and tested process that has existed for a very long time. So there may be two scenarios. First, where you're a business owner and you're transferring yourself to Canada. Second, where you're an employee and your company is transferring you to Canada, and hence you will not be self-employed in Canada. The points you can get in both scenarios are different. If you're a business owner and are transferring yourself to Canada, you can potentially claim 200 express entry CRS points as a senior manager after working for a year in Canada. Three important conditions for this are that you must be an executive or a senior manager, you must have worked for at least 12 months in Canada, and your company gives you a full-time indeterminate job offer. That is, it has no end date, and this job offer is valid both when you apply for PR and when you get the PR. If you're someone who has a bachelor's degree and a decent IELTS score, 200 points can be very helpful in express entry. Let's look at a hypothetical scenario. Let's say you own a corporation which has 20 employees, including a couple of managers or department leads. Your age is 72 years. I'm assuming age on the higher side for this simulation to show you that it can still work. So you're 72, you have a bachelor's degree of 3 or 4 years, and you've had at least 3 years of full-time work experience in your business in the last 10 years and are currently managing that business. So you're not retired. Even though you're 72 years young, the great thing is that you scored quite well in your IELTS exam with a score of 8 out of 9 in listening and 7 in reading, writing, and speaking, which is CLB 9, which is called Canadian Language Benchmark Level 9. You're married, but your spouse doesn't speak any English, but intends to accompany you to Canada, both for this work permit and eventually for PR. In this case, your federal skilled worker score will be 75 points out of 100, which means you're eligible to apply for federal skilled worker as your score is 67 or more. But eligibility doesn't mean you'll get a PR. For that, we need to look at the CRS score. In this example, your CRS score will be 503 points, which as of today is a very good score. And CRS score, if you're not familiar with it, this is the score we see online where people say express entry round of invites had a minimum score of 480 points or 490 points. All of that is CRS, Comprehensive Ranking System. So if your spouse doesn't intend to join you immediately, we can declare her as non-accompanying, which would put your score even higher at 519. So this means that you have a very strong likelihood of obtaining a Canadian PR. So this is one scenario where intra-company transfer or ICT can help you set up a business in Canada and also obtain your PR. If you only have high school education, this option may still be great to get you a Canadian work permit and set up your business here, but transitioning into PR might be more challenging, especially if you're not in your 20s or early 30s. But if you're relatively young, let's say 32, and have a high school education, your CRS score will be 498 in this scenario, which is still very good. And if you do not have high school education, then express entry will not be an option for you as a self-employed person, since you won't qualify for federal skilled worker program of express entry. So even though intra-company transfer might enable you to obtain a Canadian work permit, PR will not be possible through express entry unless you get at least high school education. But if you've studied Express Entry enough, you might challenge me and wonder, why can't you apply for Express Entry through Canadian Experience class, as CEC doesn't require high school education? And you'd be correct in saying CEC doesn't require high school education, but keep in mind that self-employed experience in Canada is not eligible for CEC. So if your education is high school or less, and your goal is to both start a business in Canada and eventually obtain Canadian citizenship, there are about 30 or so immigration programs, one of which might be more suited for you. I will link a few videos in the description, or we can have a one-on-one consultation call. By the way, if you're someone who's looking to visit, study, work, or immigrate to Canada, or you're already here and now you're looking to help your family and friends, you can apply to join our online community, which will be launching later this year, where you can connect with like-minded folks such as yourself. Check out the link to apply in the description. Now, let's look at the second scenario, where you're either transferring your employee to Canada, or you are an employee, not a business owner, and you won't be working as a self-employed person in Canada. In this case, you will get more benefits, as you can claim points for Canadian work experience, and you can also claim points for a job offer once you spend a year working in Canada for this employer who has transferred you through this intra-company transfer. You can potentially claim 53 points for 1 year of work experience in Canada and 200 points for a job offer as a senior manager after a year, and these 253 points should be enough to get you an invitation to apply for PR through CEC or FSW, that is Canadian Experience Class or Federal Skilled Worker. I had a client who had been working in Canada for 4 years as a senior manager through ICT, through Intra-Company Transfer. Their company had transferred them from India to Canada. They did not have a bachelor's degree. The surprising thing is that they didn't realize that they still had good enough points to apply for PR. So we created their profile, claimed points for Canadian work experience, as well as a job offer as a senior manager, and they were able to get their PR, even though they didn't have a bachelor's degree. So Intra-Company Transfer can be a very good option for business owners and senior managers. That's all for today. Thank you so much.